I'm very, very excited because today we have someone very special. I've met this person a few years ago, and I think that our paths are crossing again because we're doing something that we're passionate about, and probably because we're doing something that feels right for us because it's something good for the world as well. We will talk about what individuals, leaders, mom, dads, parent, family, anyone really would want to know about what to know about resilience and compassion, and how does that manifest itself in a work setting as well and in life. And compassion is such a dear topic to me and to my heart. So we have Dr. Eva Hertz with us. And with no further ado, Eva, can you introduce yourself? I'd love for the world to know who you are, and then we'll get on with some of the questions. Just a very brief chat over a coffee, which I have here.
Okay, well, I'm good. Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Passion, for reaching out to me and giving me a chance to talk about what's on my mind. When you reached out to me, and I know the work you do because I met you some years ago, and I was wondering, am I a truly passionate person, and can I actually contribute to this kind of talk or podcast? I was thinking, I'm just me. But of course, I kept thinking about it, and I realized that all my work life I've been very dedicated, and it must have something to do with being passionate, dedicated about using my profession as a psychologist to help people relieve all the kind of suffering that's related, well, to being a human being. That could be due to somatic illness, cancer, HIV, AIDS, or workplace stress, or all these kinds of difficulties that's actually binds us together. That's part of being a human being. And I realized whether I've been working as a clinical psychologist or whether being a researcher or teacher at university, I'm all the time very dedicated at, how can you say, translating psychology into something that's applicable for everyone.
Here's one of the questions from what you just said now. Let's start from the basic, but resilience and compassion are two of your expertise, right? Expertise, topics, themes, research objects. So, what is resilience and what is compassion in the context of, for example, at work? I mean, what is it generally speaking? What is it and what does it look like at work, resilience and compassion? Does it even exist at work?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sure. Well, it does. It does indeed. And well, how can I start? Because there's a lot of ongoing research. I think actually for the past 6 decades, so much research on resilience, what skills, what behavior constitutes that some people fare well when they are under very difficult circumstances, whether others actually develop mental illness. And well, we can't actually predict totally, but we do know a lot what kind of skills actually help us be more resilient. And why it has to do with compassion is it's got a lot to do with how can you say, interpret what happens in the outside world, whether we see it as a disaster or something to learn from. And how can I say? Oh, give me a second now. So it was, we're trying to define both things at one time, and that's sort of a little bit complex. Um, but being resilient has fundamentally to do with your ability to bounce back after you've met some serious troubles or difficulties in your life. And it's actually very, very common to be resilient. So when we talk about training resilience skills in the workplace, it's often to do with not ruining the resilience that's already there, or help managers use that existing resilience rather than induce it on people, because it's so common that you sometimes refer to it as ordinary magic, actually. Um, so again, it has specifically to do with having close and caring relationships, and being able to connect to other people. So in that way, resilience and compassion has a lot in common, that you realize how much we actually are alike, that it's a human condition. We experience hardships and difficult times, no matter how wealthy you're born, what kind of family you're raised in. We're bound to experience difficult times, and we're bound to bounce back. So that's part of resilience. And then, of course, it's got to do with having a realistic, positive view of yourself, that you know and you can use and apply your strength, and that you can actually, how can you say, use skills for problem solving, that and execute, that you can make things work, and you can manage yourself. And what do I mean by that? Manage your own impulses, manage your, when you feel stressed, that rather than the favorite cure could be a large glass of red wine once you come back from from work, just to reduce the stress. There are other things that are maybe more constructive that you can actually do. And why this is so extremely relevant in my view is that for so many people, their working life is sort of like an area of human suffering, rather than a place where we just enjoy doing what we are best at. So work-related stress has become such a present topic, and so many people experience meaninglessness, and suffer from all these organizational changes. You get sort of lost in the system. You get a new manager every 6 months. Your dear colleagues are removed to a different departments, and you're asked to work with new things you don't have the skills for, and it just it stresses a lot of people.
So, how does a leader who has so much influence, impact on an organizational culture, on the rest of a team, so how does a leader then create resilience or a culture resilience, especially, I wanted to say post COVID-19, but we're still in there. We're still with COVID, and there's so many changes. People working from home, virtually, and we know that changes, any sort of change would trigger some sort of resistance. How does a leader manage to create resilience or a culture of resilience, and also maybe compassion within his or her organization? How does that work practically?
These are very big questions, how can I make this short? I think I already said that there's a lot of resilience out there. So if we look at it from a manager's perspective, don't ruin what's already there. So again, it has a lot to do with connecting at a more human level with your employees, noticing when they're having a hard time, noticing when difficult things are happening in their life, and actually talk to them about it. It's really important for every one of us to feel we are seen as a whole person, also at the workplace. And then, of course, as a manager, you can always be the best example, that regard it as important that people take brain breaks during the day, or don't work at crazy hours, that you actually use your how can you say, your power as a manager to introduce what kind of email culture do we have in our company. Do we expect people to be online 24/7? And having a how can you say, healthy environment actually always starts with the manager, because she or he will always set the example.
Mm.
And to be a compassionate leader also means to specifically again and again work for the greater good, not for your own extra bonus or larger office or even more power, but that it's always on your mind that you have a huge responsibility for your employees, and not only them, because what you do say as a manager actually influences the employee's family. They'll be talking about you at the dinner, and you can how could you say, disturb their life, or you can be present in a way that's more constructive. So it's a huge responsibility.
This,
Um, I could say many more things you can do, but these are part when we get to what kind of skills we actually train people for. But we stay a little bit with the managers. Then you mentioned the pandemic as an how can you say, a huge additional stressor in all of our lives.
mm.
And as you're saying, we're still somewhat. Um, I think, well, there are so many issues concerning the pandemic, but most of all, maybe all these people whose family members have lost their lives, and the unbearable thing of not having had the possibility of saying goodbye, sitting at a sick bed, or attending a funeral. In my country, Denmark, it's better now, but I still have patients who suffer so much from not having been there when their father or mother died, or family member. So that's difficult. And then the how can you say, the boundaries between work life and private life, they were already blurred before the pandemic, but the pandemic made it crazy. And I think already during the first lockdown, there were some, wasn't that British researchers? They published an article saying, "I'm not working from home; I'm living at work," and that's how people perceived it. That they were actually working all the time. They'd be attending Zoom or Teams meeting 9 hours a day, and then after that, they could attend their real job, whatever that had to do, respond to emails or talk to clients or whatever that may be. So in many ways, we got in touch with our loneliness, and we lost the mirror that other people actually present for us. If I feel I have to work even harder or more, the mirror with a co-worker would be that she would tell me, "Hey, relax, you're doing good, and you ought to let yourself have some time off or break." But when that's not there, when that mirror is not there, many people push themselves too hard because they think, well, they just they put a extreme inner pressure on them, and that's sort of part of the way we've organized ourselves in a society, that people are relatively unkind towards themselves. So in that way, the pandemic has made our mental health much worse. And there's already research showing that all across Europe, not just in my country, there's a rise when we talk about anxiety, depression, and it's all related to stress that builds up over time due to the pandemic. So people are actually exhausted now. Yeah.
And just to throw an additional potential stressor or element that might generate stress and maladaptive outcomes in a company, in an organization. Digitization is such a huge phenomenon. It's been there for years. Many research are suggesting the potential stress caused by digitization of processes, of certain jobs as well. Some people would even, practitioners would even talk about and notice that some of the employees and team members fear for the jobs being potentially replaced by the use of machine learning, artificial intelligence. So, with the current digital area that we live in, how vital is it, and how do we make use of resilience and compassion in this digital era?
Well, one thing for sure is that we need some healthy habits. And I know all of my 5 children have very strict rules about how much they're allowed by their parents to be online. Like the youngest of 8 months, he's not at all allowed to watch any kind of screen, and the elder ones can have 30 minutes per day, and the parents are extremely strict. So I think that that's a great way to handle it, but it doesn't just apply to kids. It should actually apply to all of us to be more careful what we, how can you say, feed our brains with. But back to your question, I developed this evidence-based resilience training program 12 years ago that addresses a number of the skills that's that help you enhance your resilience and your compassion. And actually, that program, we started with resilience training for 130 combat soldiers, because at that time, combat soldiers were sent to Afghanistan with just 4 hours of psychology, applied psychology teachings. And of course, there was a lot of suffering. So I had the chance to develop a program where we trained the soldiers before deployment, and what we could see afterwards was when they had actually trained in advance, they came back with fewer symptoms of depression, isolation. They were more constructive in their coping strategies than their colleagues who'd never had this kind of training. And this program, I think I must have at least 6,000 people have trained in this program, where you actually get an introduction to these skills, and then you have to practice yourself. It has to be, how can you say, you do that, you practice it every day, because we're talking about developing new neural networks. But what we first and foremost train, whether it's managers or employees, is how can you say, connecting to their values. What kind of person, or what do I truly wish for myself from my heart of hearts? What do I wish for myself? And I never met anybody who said, "Oh, I'm longing for a Tesla." They're always longing for connectedness, meaningfulness, and when I work with a value system, which I think actually generates their passion, is what do they wish for themselves, and what do they wish for their loved ones. And they will often realize that it's the same thing. And then I ask them, what do they actually want to offer the world? And this helps people connect to their inner values, to what's really important, how they want to live their life. And I think that's another thing what the pandemic actually helped people be more aware of. How do I want to live my life, and what am I not going to stand up with anymore? But we start with that, and then we train people's awareness of thoughts that come and go all the time, and a reminder that thoughts are just thoughts. And sometimes they produce catastrophe thoughts, like thinking traps, where you think this is never going to work, or things are going to happen, and sort of train people to realize, just watch your thoughts. They are not identical with reality. And then we teach them how to, well, you could say, popularly speaking, hunt the good stuff, be more aware of gratitude as an extremely potent, positive emotion, that if you actually cultivate this, it will, in the long run, make you more happy. And then, of course, this connectedness with other, to truly recognize our common humanity, rather than feeling isolated, that I'm the only one in this workplace who got stress, or who got ill, or who had such and such a problem, a divorce or whatever. That you realize every family have their problems. It's part of being a human being, and we'll find a way. And of course, we also really train people to take good care of themselves in many ways, not only self-compassion. And part of it relates to what you just talked about, or relating to IT, screen time, television, to be much more conscious, to make this choice. Is it good for my mind to watch the news tonight, or should I rather read them in the newspaper? Is it good for me to see, I don't know, a thriller or these, how can you say, stuff with killings and murders and all that stuff? Or maybe I watch a garden program instead. So be more, how can you say, attentive, and definitely not use, what do you call these video games on the phone, like Candy Crush or stuff like that, to relax. It doesn't relax you, it actually activates the brain's alarm system. So looking after yourself is to have very, very healthy habits. Like I have some rules in my life saying I'm not allowed to attend my emails in weekends. And of course I want to, because if I've noticed it's there, I think, oh, I better reply right away, and so important. And then I take a deep breath and remind myself, hey, who's going to work with you as the founder of the Danish Center for Resilience if you're working day and night? So that helps me just to leave it be, and the email will still be there Monday morning, and I'll feel much more, in good shape attending it. So many things you can do. We introduce in meditation in the workplace. Just like 5 minutes meditation, starting a meeting with connecting to your breath, and little things. And of course, the more, the better. But there are so many small things, and people again and again say, oh, I knew this, I just forgot. So a lot of this applied tools from science is common knowledge. People forget it. And what we introduce in our program is a sort of a systematic way to live your life that'll help you, become more resilient and more compassionate and live the life you want to.
Fantastic. We're reaching the end of this talk, and it was absolutely fascinating. And some of the points, the takeaway points that I have in front of me as you were speaking, with the topic, which is what you really must know about resilience and compassion at work. We even went beyond this in itself. We talked about some cognate areas and things that were related to it. Some of the things that you said, I really loved a lot of resonance in what you said when you describe a compassionate leader or a compassionate manager works for the greater good. Yeah, so this is one thing that was very resonant in what you said. Also, can we actually introduce compassion and also resilience at work? What are the practical tips? A couple of things that you said. One is, well, first, managers, leaders that are listening, there is presence of resilience in people. Acknowledge it. First of all, make use of it. Acknowledge it is with people. Second, we don't say that enough, and we should keep repeating and repeating and repeating again this message. But managers, leaders, lead by example. If you want the culture of the organization to be reflecting resilience and compassion or self-compassion, lead by example. Show the way, and build healthy habits and a healthy environment. And then fascinating when we talked about the current digital area and digitization in processes and at work, what can be done. And here there was a list of things. First and foremost, building healthy habits, connecting people with their values, which itself, as you said, could generate passion because they realize what they love. Inviting people to be aware of their thoughts, recognizing positive emotions and gratitude. Of course, recognizing and inviting for connectedness between people.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, taking good care of the self and being conscious to have and to know how to take care of oneself. So a lot of goodies, a lot of great tips, practical things as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Eva Hertz. That was fascinating. I learned a great deal. A lot of my own research connects to yours as well and to what you've been doing. But there are some things that are absolutely fascinating and very current with the current area that we are crossing with COVID, the digital area, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for being with us. That was absolutely an honor to have you. And I hope that our listeners and people who are watching will and have enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you very much and talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed the chat. If you did, share, like, subscribe. And please join me for the next one.